She walked into the luxury boutique, wearing simple jeans and worn-out sneakers, just hoping to buy a gift for her best friend. But the wealthy shoppers laughed at her, the staff dismissed her, and everyone treated her like she didn't belong. They called her names, mocked her, and told her to leave. What they didn't know was they were laughing at the billionaire heiress who owned everything around them, and soon they would regret every word. Madison Carter had always preferred the quiet life. Unlike the socialites who graced magazine covers and charity galas, she never cared for designer shoes or luxury handbags. Madison lived modestly in a small apartment in Montclair, New Jersey. She drove an old but reliable Toyota, wore simple cardigans, and worked as a librarian at the local community center. No one in her quiet circle knew the truth, that she was the only daughter of Evelyn Carter, the late billionaire founder of Carter Global Enterprises. When Evelyn passed away 2 years ago, her will left the entire Carter empire to Madison. But Madison, overwhelmed by the attention and desperate to avoid the greed that often clung to wealth, asked her family's lawyers to keep her identity out of the media. She chose to remain hidden from the public eye, living not as a billionaire heiress, but as an ordinary woman. She didn't want people to like her because of her last name. She wanted to be treated as she truly was, a simple woman with simple tastes. But even simplicity has its moments of beauty. Her best friend, Elise, was getting married in 2 weeks. Elise had been there for Madison through thick and thin, never asking questions about her background, never caring that Madison preferred coffee shop chats to high-end restaurants. Madison wanted to give Elise a special gift, a pair of stunning, elegant shoes Elise had once admired in a magazine. Madison had secretly saved the photo for months. So, on her day off, Madison boarded a morning train to New York City. She rarely crossed a river into Manhattan, but today, she had a mission. She wanted to surprise Elise with those shoes, no matter the cost. The boutique, La Maison de Luxe, sat proudly on Fifth Avenue, its grand entrance framed by tall glass windows and golden door handles. Madison paused briefly before walking in, her hand clutching the strap of her worn leather tote bag. She smoothed her gray sweater and adjusted the old scarf she tied loosely around her neck. Her jeans were a little faded, her sneakers slightly scuffed, but she didn't think much of it. As soon as she stepped inside, she felt the weight of the atmosphere. Glittering chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and every surface gleamed under the soft white lights. Mannequins displayed sleek dresses and exotic leather handbags. Elegance dripped from every corner. The other customers were impeccably dressed women with glossy hair, manicured nails, and handbags worth more than Madison's monthly rent. Their jewelry sparkled as they glided through the store, their heels tapping rhythmically on the polished marble floors. Madison kept her head down and quietly made her way to the shoe section. That's when she heard the first snicker. Standing nearby were Brielle Montgomery and Chelsea Whitman, 2 socialites infamous for their arrogance. Both women were draped in high-end European labels. Brielle's platinum blonde hair was perfectly curled, and her fingers sparkled with diamond rings. Chelsea's tailored pink blazer looked fresh off a runway. Brielle whispered to Chelsea, but made sure her voice carried just enough. Did she take a wrong turn on her way to the thrift store? She sneered, smirking in Madison's direction. Chelsea covered her mouth as she laughed. I think she's lost. Or maybe she's here to clean. Madison's chest tightened. She tried to ignore them, focusing instead on the pair of nude heels Elise would love. They were simple but elegant, the kind of shoes that made you feel special just by wearing them. She reached out to pick them up when Jason, the boutique senior clerk, approached with a dismissive look. Ma'am, he said, eyeing her from head to toe, these are exclusive designer pieces. They start at $1,800. Madison looked at him calmly. I'd like to try them on. Jason smirked, his voice cold and flat. Fittings are for serious buyers. Behind her, Brielle and Chelsea were now openly giggling. Maybe there's a clearance bin somewhere. Brielle called out mockingly. Oh, wait. This isn't that kind of store. Madison's throat tightened, but she said nothing. She carefully placed the shoes back on the display, her fingertips brushing the soft leather one last time. Jason folded his arms, satisfied. To him, it was just another day of gatekeeping the store's luxury from those he deemed unworthy. As Madison turned to leave, the entire boutique seemed to breathe out a collective sigh, as though her very presence had been an inconvenience. What none of them realized was that they had just mocked the woman who could buy the entire block if she wanted to, but she wouldn't need to lift a finger, because someone else had seen everything, and soon they would all learn the truth. As Madison Carter quietly walked toward the boutique's exit, her heart sank lower with every step. The weight of the mockery clung to her like a cold, damp coat. She didn't need the shoes for herself. She didn't even care about the luxury. All she wanted was something special for her best friend. A small gesture to say, "You've always been there for me." But now, her hands were empty and her spirit was bruised. Just as she reached for the door, a deep, steady voice rose from the back of the boutique. "Madison Carter?" She paused, startled. No one in the store should know her full name. Slowly, she turned. Standing near the leather seating area was a tall man in his mid-30s, dressed in a sharp navy suit with a subtle silver tie. His presence was quietly commanding, and his dark, thoughtful eyes were fixed directly on her. The store's laughter stopped abruptly. The other shoppers, Brielle, Chelsea, even Jason, the smug clerk, all turned their heads toward the man. Madison blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" The man's lips lifted in a polite smile as he approached. "Not personally, but I know who you are." Jason furrowed his brow, stepping forward. "Sir, is there a problem?" The man didn't even glance at him. "Not yet." His gaze returned to Madison, warm but firm. "My name is Daniel Sinclair. I work for Carter Global Enterprises." Jason's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry, Carter Global?" Daniel finally turned to Jason. "Yes, the Carter family's company. Surely you've heard of it." Jason shifted uncomfortably. "Of course, but what does that have to do with?" Daniel's calm voice cut through the tension. "This woman," he said, gesturing to Madison, "is Madison Carter, Evelyn Carter's only daughter, the sole heir to Carter Global, the silent owner of this building and this boutique." A silence crashed over the room. Jason's face drained of color. Brielle's mouth hung open in shock. Chelsea clutched her handbag tighter, as if it could shield her from the weight of her mistake. Madison's breath caught in her throat. She never expected her identity to be revealed here, of all places. She had spent years avoiding it. Jason stammered, desperate to recover. "Miss Carter, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Please forgive me. I was just following store policies." Daniel raised a hand, silencing him. "Store policies? You humiliated her. You decided, based on her clothes, that she wasn't worthy to try on a pair of shoes." Jason's eyes darted nervously. I didn't know." "And that," Daniel said sharply, "is exactly the problem. You didn't care to know." Brielle suddenly stepped forward, her tone sticky sweet, her voice trembling with fear now. "Miss Carter, I had no idea who you were. Please, let me personally help you. You look amazing in those shoes." Madison studied her carefully. "I thought I wasn't the right kind of customer. Or did you say I should look in the clearance bin?" Brielle's face flushed deep red. Chelsea shrank behind her. Madison's voice remained calm, but carried a weight none of them could miss. "You know, it's strange. People love to tell you where you belong, but their maps are usually too small to find someone like me." Daniel's eyes gleamed with quiet pride. Jason scrambled to recover. "Please, Miss Carter, you're welcome to anything in the store. Please, allow me to make it up to you." "I don't need anything from you," Madison replied softly. She picked up the shoes she had admired earlier, cradling the box gently. Turning to Daniel, she smiled. "Please charge these to my personal account." Jason's face twisted in panic. We can offer a discount, or..." Daniel cut him off sharply. "Full price. Every penny." Jason looked as though he might collapse. Brielle tried again, her voice almost begging now. "Miss Carter, we didn't mean anything by it." Madison raised an eyebrow. "Didn't you? Maybe you'll think twice next time." She turned toward the exit, but Daniel wasn't finished. "Security," Daniel called calmly, motioning toward the nearby guard. "Please escort these two ladies out." We don't tolerate arrogance or cruelty in this boutique. The guard nodded and gestured toward Brielle and Chelsea. The two socialites protested, but no one defended them. As they were escorted out, Daniel walked alongside Madison toward the door. "You handled that with incredible grace," he said quietly. Madison's smile was small but real. "I didn't have to raise my voice. The truth spoke for me." Daniel glanced at her respectfully. "Your mother would have been proud." Madison looked up, her eyes misty. "Thank you." As they stepped outside, the crisp city air greeted them. The boutique's glass doors closed behind them, sealing in the silence they left behind. But the memory of Madison Carter, the simple woman they mocked, the billionaire heiress they underestimated, would echo inside those walls forever. As Madison and Daniel walked side by side down Fifth Avenue, the city's was wrapped around them. Honking taxis, street vendors calling out, the rhythmic footsteps of hurried New Yorkers. Madison clutched the shoe box in her hands, the weight of what just happened still settling in her chest. She glanced at Daniel, who was scrolling through his phone with an unreadable expression. "You didn't have to do that back there," she said softly. Daniel slipped his phone into his jacket pocket and looked at her. "Actually, I did. Evelyn Carter's final letter to me asked me to make sure no one disrespected her daughter." Madison's throat tightened. She hadn't spoken much about her mother's death. It still hurt, the way Evelyn's life ended so abruptly, the pressure of her legacy falling onto Madison's shoulders. "I just wanted to buy shoes," Madison murmured. "I didn't want to be the heiress today." Daniel gave a slight, knowing smile. "You didn't want to be the heiress yesterday, either, or the day before." She laughed softly, the first real laugh she'd allowed herself all day. "You don't need to hide who you are, Madison. You can live simply and still hold power. They're not opposites." Madison's step slowed. "But power makes people act differently around you." "I see it. You saw it too." Daniel nodded, his voice calm. "And yet you still didn't throw your weight around in that store. You didn't demand anything. You didn't need to. That's real power." His words lingered with her as they crossed the street. She realized, maybe for the first time, that what people thought of her didn't define her. Whether they saw a librarian or a billionaire, it was their reflection, not hers. They stopped at a quiet cafe on a corner near Central Park. Daniel ordered 2 coffees, black, and they sat outside as the breeze picked up. "So," Daniel began, his tone more businesslike now, "your mother left the company in a trust with you as a sole heir. You've never attended a board meeting. You've never stepped into the headquarters. You've avoided the media, the shareholders, the corporate press." Madison sipped her coffee slowly, her gaze fixed on the small park across the street. "I didn't want the empire. I want a life that was mine." Daniel studied her for a moment. "And now?" Madison hesitated. The humiliation she'd faced in that boutique still stung, but it also woke something in her, a realization. She could walk away from it all, or she could step into the life her mother had prepared for her, fully and without apology. "I think it's time they see me," Madison said finally, her voice quiet but certain. Daniel's expression softened. "There's something else I didn't mention. The boutique you visited today, it's part of Carter Global's luxury holdings. You own it." Madison blinked. "Wait, seriously?" He nodded. "The entire Fifth Avenue portfolio. All those buildings, they're under Carter Global's management." She let out a breath, half laughing in disbelief. The very store that shamed her belonged to her. She had the power to remove every arrogant staff member, to change its culture entirely. And the socialites? Madison asked, "Brielle and Chelsea?" Daniel chuckled lightly. "I happen to know their fathers are heavily leveraged in real estate, property you indirectly control through Carter Global's subsidiaries." Madison raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "So I could make things difficult for them." "You could," Daniel confirmed. "But you don't strike me as someone who plays dirty." "No," Madison agreed. "But I do believe in consequences." A small plan was already forming in her mind. One that didn't require cruelty, just a quiet reminder that no one is above kindness, and no one is beneath respect. "I'd like to revisit the boutique," Madison said, finishing her coffee. Not as a customer this time. Daniel smiled, sensing exactly what she meant. As they stood and prepared to leave, Madison felt something she hadn't in years, a pull toward the life she had always run from. Not the life of a billionaire, the life of a woman who finally embraced her worth. And soon, those who mocked her would see her again, on her terms. The next morning, Madison returned to La Maison de Luxe, not as a quiet customer, but as the building's owner. She arrived in the same simple sweater, jeans, and worn sneakers. No luxury car, no entourage, just herself. As she stepped inside, Jason's eyes flicked up, irritation flashing across his face. He clearly remembered her. Brielle and Chelsea were there again, laughing with another group of wealthy shoppers, pretending nothing had happened. Jason walked over quickly, ready to push her out again. "Ma'am, I think you're—" Before he could finish, Daniel entered behind Madison, this time with Carter Global's legal team. His voice was sharp. "You will address her properly." Jason's face paled. Brielle's laughter froze as she turned and saw Daniel. Daniel continued, "Effective immediately, this store's management is under review. All staff responsible for yesterday's incident are suspended pending termination." Security swiftly approached. Jason protested, but was escorted out. Brielle and Chelsea tried to follow Daniel, their words sugary and desperate. "Miss Carter, we were just joking. Please, we had no idea." Madison faced them calmly. "You didn't need to know who I was. Kindness shouldn't depend on someone's last name." They stood there speechless as Madison turned to the new store manager, who had just arrived. She smiled gently. "Starting today, I want this boutique to be known for its kindness, not its arrogance. No one should ever be made to feel small here again." The manager nodded, clearly moved. Madison glanced back one last time at Brielle and Chelsea. "Don't worry, I won't ruin your fathers. But I do hope you remember this moment. Sometimes the people you look down on are the ones standing above you." Without another word, Madison walked out, the weight of the past lifted from her shoulders. This time, she left not in shame, but in quiet, powerful triumph. The news spread like wildfire. Within hours of Madison's return to La Maison de Luxe, every major outlet in the city had caught wind of the story. "The Billionaire Heiress walks among us." The headlines blared. "Madison Carter, hidden daughter of Evelyn Carter, quietly owns half of Fifth Avenue." For years, she had lived in the shadows of her own legacy. Now, the world knew her name. But Madison didn't seek out interviews. She turned down magazine features and politely declined televised profiles. She didn't want a media circus. She wasn't interested in being the center of attention. What mattered to her was that she'd finally stepped into her mother's shoes. Not the fortune, but the courage to stand up for herself. Daniel called her the next morning. "You've gone viral," he teased. "The footage of you walking out of the boutique is everywhere." "I didn't plan for that," Madison said with a sigh, though her voice held a quiet smile. "Do you regret it?" "No," she said softly. "I think it was time." The city buzzed with the story of the simple woman who turned out to be a billionaire heiress. Madison quickly became a symbol, not of wealth, but of quiet strength. A week later, she invited Elise to the same boutique, this time as her guest. Elise, unaware of the full story, marveled at the store's beauty. "Are you sure we can shop here? This place is... wow." Madison chuckled. "I'm sure." As they browsed, Madison noticed how the staff now treated everyone, whether in designer heels or old sneakers, with respect and warmth. The culture had changed, and Madison was quietly proud to have been the catalyst. Elise picked out a beautiful pair of shoes, but when she saw the price, she shook her head. "Oh no, I can't let you buy these. They're too much." Madison simply smiled. "Consider it a thank you for always seeing me, not for my name, just for me." Elise didn't understand the deeper meaning then, but she would later. As they sat in the cafe afterward, Elise finally asked, "What really happened here, Maddie? You seem different." Madison paused, watching the taxis pass by, the sunlight glinting off the glass buildings. She thought about her mother, about all the years she had tried to stay invisible, and about the moment she realized she didn't have to anymore. I used to think power meant money, Madison said slowly. That it meant titles, big offices, fast cars. But power, real power, is knowing you don't have to prove anything to anyone. It's walking away with your head high, even when they try to push you down. Elise smiled softly, sensing there was more to the story, but choosing not to pry. A few days later, Carter Global announced Madison Carter as the new public face of the company. Not because she sought the role, but because the world had already found her. And for the first time, she didn't run. She began attending board meetings. She walked the halls of Carter Global's headquarters, greeting employees by name. She made it clear that kindness would be the foundation of every company decision, that no customer, no employee, no person would ever be treated as less. Madison didn't change her wardrobe. She didn't trade in her old car. She didn't buy a penthouse overlooking Central Park. She stayed in her quiet apartment, kept her job at a library, and continued meeting Elise for coffee every Thursday. But she had changed in the most important way. She now walked through the world fully herself, unapologetic, unhidden, quietly powerful. Those who had mocked her, those who had dismissed her, would remember the day they humiliated the woman who owned everything around them. But Madison never sought revenge. She had already won. Her victory wasn't in what she owned. It was in who she chose to be. And that no one could ever take away.